Yeah. Oh, fuck. Hey. Did you guys see me fall? Sorry. I was going to read a book out loud. I started, and I realized I had audio playing that made it impossible to hear. I also fell on my ass at the beginning of that stream, so I figured I might as well just start over. I don't know. Hope you guys are well. How are you? I'm here to hang out. Here to be normal. Not hurt myself anymore. How about that? So I'm going to start over. This is a Aberration in the Heartland of the Real. It's a long name. My friend Manya said that it couldn't be named anything else. The subtitle is The Secret Lives of Timothy McVeigh. I said previously I'll sort of go through it. I don't know. It's my favorite conspiracy book so far, and I've not even done it. And I've read quite a few. Not that I really think that's a good way to describe any kind of genre. What else? Centers on Timothy McVeigh, this author, this researcher, doctor, Wendy S. Painting, I think started this as a dissertation here, presenting startling new biographical details about Timothy McVeigh and exposing stark contradictions and errors contained in previous depictions of the all-American terrorist. This book traces McVeigh's life from childhood to the Army, throughout the plot to bomb the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building and the period after his 1995 arrest until his 2001 execution. McVeigh's life, as Dr. Wendy Painting describes it, offers a backdrop for her discussion of several intimate and previously unknown details about him, but also a number of episodes and circumstances in American history. Painting explores Cold War popular culture, all-American apocalyptic fervor, organized racism, contentious politics, militarism, warfare, conspiracy theories, bioethical controversies, mind control, the media's construction of villains and demons, and institutional secrecy and cover-ups. Within these contexts, numerous stories by and about McVeigh are examined, compared, and tested, making this book a much closer examination into the personality and life of Timothy McVeigh than has been provided by any other biographical work about him. LoneWolfResearch.com. You guys see that? Does this look good to you? Okay. So I wanted to read part 4, Howling at the Moon. I'm going to start over. I don't think you could hear me. Okay. I'm going to skip those quotes, I'm sorry. But I'll read the Jack Kerouac, or William S. Burroughs writing to Jack Kerouac in 1957. I get these messages from other planets. I'm apparently some kind of agent from another planet, but I haven't gotten my orders clearly decoded yet. Relatable, I would say. Since the end of World War II, works of popular science fiction have nurtured American imaginations with stories of flying saucers, UFOs, space travel, aliens, and mad scientists. Baby boomers and beyond grew up on tales of Nevada's mysterious Area 51, unexplained crashes of strange aircraft on the deserts of Roswell, New Mexico, advanced technologies, alien or otherwise, and living monstrosities created by science gone haywire. These imaginings caught on, and science fiction soon blurred with the parameters of possible reality. By 1990, 3 out of 5 Americans believed in UFOs. Half the population believed they had personally encountered a UFO. Between 27% and 50% thought the U.S. government was covering up knowledge about the existence of aliens, and 1 in 50 believed that at one time or another they themselves had been abducted by aliens. Not since the 1950s had Americans displayed such a fascination with UFOs, and since that time it had become a polarizing topic. On one side there were skeptical debunkers, and on the other true believers, some of whom claimed to have personally observed UFOs or encountered non-human beings from outer space, who occasionally took the opportunity to kidnap them. In the middle was a confused but entertained public. Maybe aliens crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. Maybe they didn't. Maybe the Air Force recovered non-human vehicles containing living or dead space travelers. What's a human vehicle? And stored them at secret underground hangars. Or maybe not. Maybe the government was testing futuristic aerial vehicles over Area 51 in Nevada, a location whose operational existence remained at the time denied. But then again, maybe they weren't. And what about the relentless men in black? Who were they? Anyways. Depending on who you asked, UFO sightings could be attributable to naturally occurring phenomena such as glowing globes of electricity that tended to appear just prior to earthquakes. Others said that the perplexed skywatchers had observed actual but human-engineered aerial hardware, including weather balloons, satellite, or classified experimental military aircraft, testing new non-lethal sound and electric weapons as well as stealth and perhaps highly classified anti-gravity capabilities. The skeptics agreed that the majority, if not all, sightings originated from the human imagination alone. If not fabrications, hoaxes, or practical jokes, then perhaps the sightings were caused by sleep paralysis, or vision-producing hypnagogic sleep conditions. For others, the sightings evidenced mass hysteria caused by apocalyptic anxieties as the dreaded Y2K rapidly approached. Psychic disturbances... Ooh, gross. Psychic disturbances coinciding with political and economic upheavals, as theorized by Carl Jung in 1958. The most ardent skeptics warned that those engaged in the obsessive quest for answers about UFOs were similar to a dangerous cult that threatened the phenomena within American culture, or threatened the sanity of growing numbers of people, and that the coddling of the phenomena within American culture and by the entertainment industry only compounded matters. One more time. The most ardent skeptics warned that those engaged in the obsessive quest for answers about UFOs were similar to a dangerous cult that threatened the sanity of growing numbers of people, and that the coddling of the phenomena within American popular culture and by the entertainment industry only compounded matters. According to another emergent and newly articulated theory, individuals' memories of UFOs and abductions were in fact false memories implanted through hypnosis by well-meaning and overeager therapists with highly suggestible clients. Many UFO skeptics supported this theory, and it even found support among some conspiracy theorists who added their own twist. Those fortunate enough to undergo such an experience had, unfortunately, been the subjects of unwitting mind control experiments performed on hapless and unsuspecting individuals by factions of a secret government that inserted false memories of UFOs to cover other unthinkable ones. Worse, the government had engaged in a massive misinformation and disinformation campaign to spread UFO mania to shield their activities. I actually have this article on my phone. at least an article that contains this theory, which is called The Controllers, a New Hypothesis of Alien Abduction by Martin Cannon. I think if you Google it, you can find it. If you want to read more about that theory specifically. I don't know. It's interesting. Mind control technology, etc. Okay. Thus, the fracturing debate divided even the conspiracy theorists, who, among themselves, disagreed about the meaning of the recent oddly populated skies. Some held an unshakable belief in extraterrestrial interstellar spacecraft. For them, a number of possible reasons existed for the recent rash of UFOs traveling to Earth from the farthest reaches of outer space. The exploitation of Earth's natural resources, along with the domination and enslavement of humankind. A malevolent or benevolent but rigorous study of humans whose methodology consisted of abducting and performing bizarre medical procedures, often involving the implantation of tracking devices in human bodies, thereby allowing the curious alien scientists to monitor their subjects, delivering warnings about humankind's imminent destruction of the planet and themselves along with it. and or to usher in a peaceful and long-awaited New World Order. Still, if you replaced aliens with shadow government, similarities between the basic narrative formulae of the two versions became apparent. Either way, the government was covering up something. Their own evil plots or the existence of extraterrestrial life with evil plots. I added that. Sorry, this is reading with commentary, so take that. Luckily for upstate Western New Yorkers, and their Canadian neighbors, in September 1992, the Buffalo News published a list of encounter clues to help readers determine whether or not they had made contact with aliens or UFOs, and a month later, a Calgary Herald article entitled "The Skies Are Full of UFOs" added to the list. Indicators included observations of strange lights in the sky followed by amnesia or missing time, unexplained bodily scarring, nosebleeds, and pregnancies, Jesus Christ, as well as recurring and vivid dreams of flying saucers or medical examinations, an overwhelming fear of the dark or being outside alone, feelings of being watched and sensing sentient yet unseen presences. If this sounded familiar to anyone, groups of believers, skeptics, and their expert guest speakers hosted by both met regularly in the Buffalo, Niagara, Ontario region. Hopefully eating garbage plates. A good thing, too, as newspapers told of a growing number of local UFO sightings, abductions, and individuals experiencing periods of missing time. Of course, there was nothing new about this. Western New York had been plagued by UFOs for decades, like that time when a Buffalo area teenager was busy milking his cows in his barn when he heard an unexplained noise just outside, as the airwaves of the radio he was listening to filled with unintelligible static and his milking machinery stalled. When he went outside to see what was going on, he saw a silver-colored football-shaped object with sharply defined edges hovering just above treetop level. The craft made beeping sounds, emitted red vapor, and then suddenly made a loud booming sound, sharply ascended, turning the clouds green in the process, and disappeared. 4 other people reported similar sightings within the next 40 minutes. Although they searched the area, neither the New York State Police or the Air Force found anything to indicate the cause of the disturbance, except for a purple-colored oily substance found on a nearby sod sample. Similar sightings in the area continued, usually involving aircraft displaying formations of unusual lights, maintaining fixed positions, and that, on at least one occasion, emitted purring sounds like a bag full of kittens. Reflecting national patterns, the phenomena continued regionally, and shared or group UFO sightings seemed to increase in the early 1990s, as seen in a number of Buffalo News articles and elsewhere. In February 1994, the good people of Ellicottville, an outlying suburb of Buffalo, reported sightings of a flying humanoid man with a rocket pack, who made no noise but was accompanied by Huey-type helicopters that flew just as silently alongside him. Scores of witnesses simultaneously called the local paper to report unexplained flying black objects of differing shapes and sizes with red lights hovering over fields, illuminating the skies. After his close encounter of the Ellicott kind, one concerned citizen snapped a photo. Although, as these things tend to go, the origins of the beams of light captured in it were indeterminable. That same month, handfuls of people near Syracuse saw a craft with 2 rows of bright lights fly over a cornfield and suddenly plummet to the ground. But when Fort Drum dispatched 2 helicopters equipped with night vision devices to investigate, they found no trace of the spaceship. The growing number of sightings in the region during the early to mid-1990s and the public's growing attention to them provoked the ire of the proudly rational-minded, who chalked them up to board as now that the Loch Ness Monster has been revealed to be a hoax and the Kennedy assassination has been discussed to exhaustion, UFOs remain the last outpost for this cosmic intrigue. For the undecided, the question remained: if extraterrestrials have found Earth, what will happen to our culture, religion, science, and politics? How will we react to presumably superior beings? I like that, presumably superior. The real issue for believers, however, was not if they existed, but as expressed in topics of a seminar held at the local Ramada Inn, the more pressing issue was the worldwide UFO cover-up and the need to uncover UFOs, the history and evidence. More neutral commentators, like Jody Dean, writing in the late 1990s, felt the presence of such beliefs provided an especially revealing window to examine current American paranoia and distrust, and thought stories about UFOs and space exploration allowed for an interrogation of the link between American technology and American identity. Concerns about UFOs and their alien occupants were reflected in fictional works as well, in which the villains not only acted as symbolic stand-ins for Cold War communist others, but also mirrored the actual activities and aspirations of the U.S. defense industry. All right, I'm going to keep going. The next chapter is, or the next part of it is Buffalo's Area 51. So she's still going. I kind of want to read the whole UFO section, or at least so far as I know. So that's going to be, what's 339 minus 297? Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to get a drink. Be right back. Be right back. Maybe Frank will join. And when I won't step on the chair, she'll be with me. Hello. I really want to do it again. But I can't. That's too far away for this. Here we go. So Frank can maybe come in. If she wants. Okay. Clementine Bramble. Okay. Buffalo's Area 51. Far to the east, down in the pink sky, something has sparked very brightly. A new star, nothing less noticeable. It's a vapor trail. Already a finger's width higher now. But not from an airplane. Airplanes are not launched vertically. This is the new and still most secret German rocket bomb. Already the rocket has gone pure ballistic, has risen higher, but invisible now. The missile, 60 miles high, must be coming up on the peak of its trajectory by now, beginning its fall. Now, he won't hear the thing come in. It travels faster than the speed of sound. The first news you get of it is its last. That's from Thomas Pynchon's Gravity is Rainbow, 1973. I have not read that, but I could. I should, probably. I don't know. Sounds great. Okay, in 1992, McVeigh was transferred upon his request from his desk job to the Burns office to an armed night watchman position at CalSpan, a local aerospace research and development center. Just for context, he's back from the Gulf War. He has PTSD and shit, blah, blah, blah. He may or may not be in special forces, or at least on special assignment. There he met Carl LeBron, another guard with whom he discussed all manner of strange topics. LeBron said that he and McVeigh shared a mutual interest in conspiracy theories, UFOs, strip clubs, and the usual political type stuff. Yeah. And while he found McVeigh's conspiracy theories more radical than the ones he was willing to consider, McVeigh was still into UFOs, and both men occasionally brought in UFO magazines to discuss. In fact, upon his transfer to CalSpan, McVeigh hit the conspiracy theory jackpot. As fate would have it, McVeigh and LeBron guarded a facility whose yearly multi-million-dollar defense contracts helped generate the very flying saucer lore they had discussed there. The fascinating history of CalSpan takes place in the context of Cold Cold War era fears and hopes that today have evolved into the realization of technologies and practices previously considered science fiction fantasy. In 1939, the Buffalo-based Curtiss-Wright Aircraft Corporation established the Flight Research Laboratory across from the Buffalo Airport and built a revolutionary wind tunnel to study high-velocity flight. The wind tunnel ensured Curtiss-Wright's place as the largest airplane manufacturer and second-largest corporation in the U.S. during World War II. Towards the end of World War II, after a scandal regarding Curtiss-Wright's involvement in a conspiracy to sell defective airplane parts to the U.S. military, they donated the facility, valued at $2.5 million, to Cornell University, who renamed it CAL, the Cornell Aeronautical Laboratory. This was first, by no means the last time, that the CAL lab turned into a political and scientific hot potato. Operating under the auspices of a newly formed graduate school of aerospace engineering, CAL conducted advanced aviation and technological research and development with the goals of maintaining U.S. air superiority and achieving innovations in commercial flight, as well as non-aviation related advances in diverse fields, including robotics and transportation. The period immediately following World War II was one of controversy for the aerospace research industry, especially as it concerned the fate of hundreds of Nazi scientists in the U.S. venture codenamed Project Paperclip. The period immediately following World War II was one of controversy for the aerospace research industry, especially as it concerned the fate of hundreds of Nazi scientists in a U.S. venture codenamed Project Paperclip. While now a matter of public record, Paperclip remained secret for decades. As World War II ended, the U.S. and Soviets scrambled to gather the expertise of Nazi scientists whose developments during the war included prototypes for supersonic rockets, guided missiles, atomic and chemical weapons, aerial vehicles, stealth technologies, and aviation medicine. Under the authorization of President Truman, Project Paperclip secretly transferred more than 700 German scientists and their research projects to the U.S., where they began new lives under assumed names and busied themselves with work meant to ensure U.S. superiority in the upcoming Cold War space race. Nazis with new identities entered the top echelons of American aerospace industry, including the USAF and all other branches of the military, NASA, and major private aerospace companies, including Northrop Aviation, Lockheed, Martin Marietta, and North American Aviation. The paper-clipped Nazi scientists developed some of the U.S.'s most spectacular technologies, including stealth bombers, guided cruise missiles, and hypersonic aircraft. One of the paperclip Nazis, Werner von Braun, designed the V-2 missile, grandfather to today's cruise missiles. Their ranks included a number of bona fide SS war criminals who, in the course of their coveted research, sanctioned, authorized, or were directly responsible for thousands of deaths. Another was the father of space medicine, and former Luftwaffe Colonel Hubertus Strughold. Good Lord. Hubertus Strughold, whose love of science had led him to place prisoners in Dachau and Auschwitz in low-pressure chambers to determine human resiliency to high-altitude and high-speed flight, resulting in many gruesome deaths. Some of his other experiments, also performed on concentration camp inmates, entailed his placing them in freezing water for long periods of time and performing invasive surgical procedures without anesthetic. As the pioneer of aeromedical research, Strughold studied the effects of oxygen deprivation using epileptic children. Although the staff of the Nuremberg trials and the U.S. military intelligence documents listed him as a war criminal, Strughold apparently redeemed himself when he designed NASA's onboard life support systems, and for the remainder of his life continued to hold a number of esteemed positions in the U.S. defense establishment, where he went on about developing methods to allow humans to travel safely into outer space. Paperclip provides the context for the U.S.'s illustrious aerospace and space exploration history, and for what Jack Bielman, former researcher at CalSpan, described as the mostly secret history of CalSpan's immense contributions to aeronautics development, a significant amount of which was conducted at the lab where McVeigh and LeBron guarded. Paperclip has also inspired numerous works of fiction, including the classic Pynchon novel Gravity's Rainbow. Bug, which is a movie that she's been talking about, alludes to Paperclip when Peter says after the Gulf War he was taken to Groom Lake, Area 51, and became the experimental subject for a military doctor named Dr. Sweet. Such experiments, explained Peter, when the CIA had smuggled Nazi scientists into the States to work with the American military at Calspan, where they developed tracking devices, brain implants. Paperclip is also a staple subject within the conspiracy genre. No self-respecting conspiracy writer would neglect to mention it, and many argue that any major aerospace company after World War II would have on staff at least one of its own paperclip Nazis. Paperclip, however, is one of the subjects where the boundary separating the conspiracy genre and credible mainstream journalism becomes porous. In his book, not classified as within the conspiracy genre, The Hunt for Zero Point Inside the Classified World of Anti-Gravity, Nick Cook, a writer for Jane's Defense Weekly, traced the paperclip paper trail to startling conclusions about some of the U.S.'s technological plunder of Germany after World War II. Apparently, within underground German factories, Nazi rocket scientists using slave labor had been experimenting with anti-gravity aircraft, and according to Cook, had made some advances in the field of what at the time was called electrogravitics. The relocated Nazi rocket scientists continued developing their gravity-defying classified work upon their arrival in the U.S. During the 1950s, until at least the mid-1970s, financed by deep black budgets. When it came to anti-gravity research, Cook wrote, everybody has a finger in the pie. Everybody included Buffalo-based aerospace companies Bell and Curtiss-Wright and Avro, a Canadian company, all associated with Cal. For Cook, the testing of anti-gravity and other experimental technologies and aircraft accounted for a number of UFO sightings after World War II, including many over the skies of the U.S.-Canadian border. After World War II and the Soviets' launching of Sputnik, America reached for the stars, and the Cal became an epicenter for leading airplane design and manufacturing, pioneering developments that played a major role in helping the U.S. catch up in the space race. According to the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, nearly every military aircraft and space vehicle developed in the United States from the end of World War II until the present day has been tested at this facility known as Calspan. In early 1992, Calspan was, among other things, continuing the work begun during the paperclip era by further developing hypersonic flight speed capabilities. Perhaps, as they sat around the Calspan guard shack, LeBron and McVeigh discussed the lab's X-planes or other experimental aircraft that often enough had been humorously mistaken for UFOs or of non-terrestrial origin and resulted in a perplexed public. Operations at Calspan undoubtedly influenced UFO lore. Shortly after McVeigh left his job at the end of 1992, Calspan, at that time a subsidiary for Arvin Industries International, merged with another company, headed by former astronaut Joseph Allen, to form Space Industries International, Inc., and combined their aeronautic and industrial space operations to make headway in the growing commercial space sector, including the design, testing, and eventual manufacture of private spacecraft. Analysts at the time estimated that by the year 2000, the commercialization of space would generate billions of dollars in revenue. Bet. Indeed, conspiracy writers like Jim Keith, likely read by the two Cal guards, surmised that the U.S. government / corporate ruling elite, with the help of their Nazi allies, had foreknowledge of some impending world disaster, and accordingly planned to leave space station Earth and resettle on colonized planets. Once there, batches of enslaved and zombified humans could perform the more mundane workings of such an ambitious project. Such evil machinations of the murderous-minded elite made sense to McVeigh, who who saw in his favorite television show a similar but more utopian vision outlined in a letter to his biographers. Star Trek holds the key. The social structure of society, the political beliefs of the Federation, including the Prime Directive, to some, humanity should come together, voluntarily, not by bombs or sanctions, each nation as they're ready, for the common goal of colonization of other planets. The most important reason? Right now, we have all of our eggs in one basket. Any global catastrophe, extinction event, there was an asteroid scare just last week, would wipe out not only our species, but all we worked for, all of our knowledge, experience, and progress. However, it may seem we degenerate, we have still advanced as a whole. Preservation of the species of knowledge. A cure to the number one reason for conflict, territorial disputes. Everyone can have their own world. By everyone, I mean every nation state, every political belief system, every religious faction, etc. Of course, you'd have to establish ethical guidelines for dominating other pre-existing life. This would be a remedy for population expansion problems, too. Too many people competing for limited space resources, I believe, is the root of most of our problems today. Conflict, environmental degradation, species extinction, etc. We should focus for our post-Cold War energies rather than them manifesting in violence. Among the technological loot seized from the Nazis after World War II was the drone. While other countries, including the U.S., had tinkered with the idea of unmanned aircraft previously, they hadn't gotten as far as the Nazis. Air Force intelligence documents related to paperclip operations describe, in Cook's words, Nazi development and late-stage testing of Vesco's Fireball drone, a pilotless, remote-controlled aircraft that disrupted the energies and electronic systems of Allied bombers. Before, during, and after McVeigh guarded its secrets, Calspan, aided by multi-billion-dollar contracts from the DoD and all branches of the military, made significant contributions to the further development and testing of remotely controlled aircraft, capable of unusual and risky maneuvers that human pilots could not perform, and the training and interface systems necessary for those who would pilot them. Perhaps coincidentally, an unrelated article in the Buffalo News written by a Calspan engineer noted that UFO sightings involved lights and apparently solid objects that execute incredible maneuvers, such as high-speed right-angle turns, sudden starts and stops, falling leaf descent, and silent hovering followed by rapid acceleration capabilities, far beyond any known aircraft on Earth. In the early 1990s, major aerospace companies, suffering the decline of ballistic missile projects and other defense contract staples, turned to drone development and production to offset the losses. Enthusiasts emphasized their successful use on the front lines of the Gulf War, their precision and ability to carry television cameras, sensors, and jamming equipment that, they promised, would reduce casualties and fatalities in future wars. Even at this time, analysts and proponents projected their commercial use in domestic law enforcement, surveillance, drug enforcement, and customs operations by 2003. In the meantime, though, U.S. drones proved themselves useful in foreign peacekeeping operations, and in the late 1990s, when drones were now equipped not just with cameras but with laser targeting systems. While it sounded like something out of a science fiction movie, the hope, or at least the justification often offered, was to create an empty battlefield, and as the necessary satellite computing and artificial intelligence capabilities improved, the vision became all the more realistic. Still, outside of industry observers, drones didn't command wide-scale public attention. And then 9/11 happened. After that, drones such as the Global Hawk and Predator, carrying Hellfire missiles, swarmed the skies of Afghanistan and then Iraq, theaters of war that Peter Pace, vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs, said provides a tremendous laboratory to test the Pentagon's new toys. Someday, there could even be whole squadrons of pilotless attack planes, and would make up 90% of the combat aircraft by 2025. Media outlets gleefully announced in November 2001. The CIA at the time, the main overseers and users of drones, pressed for increased use of attack drones, implying that if they had them sooner, they could have killed Osama bin Laden, thereby preventing 9/11. As the months went on, drones were increasingly credited with victories in the global war on terror. Admittedly, drones crashed more often than the war wagers would have liked, but this was a work in progress. The real winners in all of this, though, were not the American people per se, but the entire aerospace industry. After 9/11, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, long criticized for his efforts to transform the military by endowing it with the ability to project American power anywhere at any time at a moment's notice, or preemptively sooner, was now heralded as a prophet. In Rumsfeld's vision, once America's international technological killing capability was secure, military priority could be shifted towards homeland defense because, as he explained, new threats have arrived, quite literally, at our doorstep. Although Calspan had remained quietly in the background working towards such Rumsfeldian visions previously, the post-9/11 world prevented the very backdrop needed for them to shine once more, and shine they did. Among their other contributions, in 2004, Calspan began testing the autonomous aerial refueling system for unmanned aerial vehicles over Lake Ontario. The AAR, hailed as a game-changer in 2012, significantly increased the range and endurance of aircraft carrier-based drones, from which other drones are deployed. The test flights, said Calspan President Louis Knotts, were not only an important contribution to the military's operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, as the drone performed invaluable surveillance and combat functions as eyes in the sky, but also made an important contribution to the local economy. They soon expanded their local operations across from the Buffalo airport and built new facilities in economically blighted chemical wasteland of nearby Niagara Falls, which had become the smelly armpit of western New York since its glory days of yore. In 2005, Sea Technology reported on the ongoing development of lighter-than-air high-altitude airships resembling giant zeppelins powered conventionally or by fuel and solar cell technology that could remain in the air for over 6 months at a time. The Calspan University of Buffalo Research Center was among those helping to ensure their imminent use in military, commercial, and homeland security operations. In 2007, a Guardian headline alarmingly asked if the U.S. is launching a blimp to spy on its population, and warned that those paranoid of persistent surveillance and eyes in the sky tracking their every move had until 2009 to dig a bunker and a set of underground tunnels. Underground tunnels mentioned. Readers were informed that it would only take 11 HAAs to watch every square meter of the whole country. By 2014, analysts, seduced by dirigible dreams, said that while still in their infancy, expensive, clumsy, and prone to fall out of the sky, the stratospheric sky monstrosities would have the ability to peer into distant galaxies in the not-so-far future. Local test flights over civilian airspace intended to work out the kinks in the new space-age experimental HAA aircraft continue at the time of this writing. Since September 11th, 2013, Calspan successfully tested a simulation of the Unmanned Carrier-Launched Airborne Surveillance and Strike, UN's CLASS, UN-class control software that they had designed. So that's Unmanned Carrier-Launched Airborne Surveillance. So it's unmanned, it's launched from a carrier, and it's airborne surveillance. Okay, anyway. In April 2014, the Navy announced that they would stop building UN-class systems, described as squadrons of robotic Top Guns, weighing up to 80,000. They announced they would begin building UNClass systems, described as squadrons of robotic Top Guns weighing up to 80,000 pounds each, that when launched from AARs would have the capacity to drop 500-pound bombs and would carry up to 3,000 pounds of other payload, and so on. Of course, not everybody was enthusiastic about the ongoing drone development and use. In August 2012, it was announced that as part of the FAA Modernization and Reform Act, Western New York, already the site of one of 64 drone bases in the U.S., was in the running to become one of the 6 regions designated to conduct further drone research and testing to begin no later than September 2015. Protesters throughout the country, suspicious of secretive defense budgets, unauthorized surveillances, poorly and well-executed targeted attacks abroad, and for some, the fear of a robot takeover, think Skynet, held signs saying, "Make jobs, not drones." While drone proponents argue this is exactly what the booming commercial and defense drone industry would do. Make jobs and drones, theoretically. From 2002 to the present, U.S. drones have rained hell on the declared war zones of Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as covertly in declared war zones, including undeclared war zones, including Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia, killing thousands. Among the dead are civilians, nearly half of them children, all written off as collateral damage. A June 2013 opinion piece about collateral damage caused by America's drone wars noted that many decry the notion that Obama is anything close to the warmongering Bush. But since his presidency began, he has sanctioned 7 times more covert drone strikes than his predecessor, George W. Bush, a number that continues to rise. According to some estimates, in 2013 alone, drones had killed more than 2,500 people, more than 300 of whom were civilians, while 70 plus were children. And those were just the ones that we know about. Accurate body counts were difficult in such awkward situations. However, even the advancements in battlefield technologies ostensibly developed for accuracy's sake. Governments of countries victimized by drones say that the body count is higher. In 2013, Pakistan claimed that since they began their reign of aerial terror over a decade ago, U.S. drones have killed over 3,000 Pakistani civilians, including children and some infants, making the collateral damage toll much higher than the militant or combatant casualty rate. Further, the drones have laid waste to the region's wildlife, civilian property, and livestock. In June of the same year, Pakistan submitted a resolution to the same year, so that's 2013, to the National Assembly and denouncing the never-ending U.S. drone attacks and demanded the U.S. government stop the slaughter, which they pointed out violates the country's sovereignty as well as a number of UN human rights resolutions and charters, as well as international treaties and Geneva Convention provisions. By 2015, covert drone strikes in regions outside of the U.S.'s declared war zones, authorized by the Obama administration and carried out by the CIA and the Pentagon Special Forces Outfit, Joint Special Operations Command, had reportedly killed 6 times as many people and twice as many civilians as those authorized under the Bush administration. In April of that year, the ACLU announced that while it is known that U.S. drones have killed thousands, no one outside of the government has a clear idea of who's being killed or why, as the government does not release information about the targets of individual drone strikes or the numbers of civilian deaths caused by them. Even the laws governing the use of drone strikes remain hidden from the public. Oh my fucking god. Even the laws governing the use of drone strikes remain hidden from the public, and until recently, the CIA, citing national security, refused to acknowledge that a drone program even existed. Who needs good old-fashioned assassins when you've got flying robots to do your wet work? Some argue that drones are a much more humane method of dealing with insurgents than, say, Gitmo or other black sites of extraordinary rendition. Said Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, "We don't capture people anymore." As it turns out, though, the secret killings of specific targets in the U.S.'s drone assassination program was highly ineffective. So-called terrorists and militants who became targets of this method of death were tracked for metadata from computers, phones, and cell SIM cards that then determined the location for the strike. Lo and behold, there were some issues of accuracy with this method. As one whistleblower who leaked documents about the drone assassination program pointed out in October 2015, the entire time you thought you were going after this really hot target, you wind up realizing it was his mother's phone the whole time. In fact, the number of misattributed people targeted for death is stunning, despite President Obama's joking response that drones would only be used to murder terrorists who pose a continuing imminent threat to the American people, and when there is near certainty that no civilians will be killed or injured. Of the 200 known to have been killed in drone strikes between January 2012 to February 2013, 35 were actually targets. Everybody else, including children, just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. No matter what, unidentified corpses are classified as enemies, and the Pentagon plans to increase the use of drone flights. I'm going to pee and turn on Frank Cam. She's here. And keep going, because I want to. Even if I don't make it that far. Oh. There you go. Hey, you're eating that. Maybe I should do that. Green screen mania, they're saying. Green screen mania, they're fucking saying, I guess. I don't know. Certainly not lit perfectly well. My green screen. Yeah, let me try this. This needs to charge again. Oh. Okay. Frankie, you can come and sit in here if you want. There's a whole camera set up to watch you. Come on, Frank. Come on, Frank. Hates it. Not impressed at all. You hanging? Frank and Lettuce are here, but Frank is like, I don't think I'm. Hey, Frank! Hey! Come sit in your spot. Alright. Okay. Since 2011, the United States Air Force, using exciting massive multiplayer video game-like simulators, has trained more drone pilots than fighter and bomber pilots combined. In response, groups like Veterans for Peace have produced flashy ad campaign videos calling attention to the U.S.'s murder by drone addiction, and the way that those smart warriors who remotely control them are kept detached from the destructive and lethal consequences of their actions. Pointing out the high rates of PTSD in those who kill from afar, activist groups Please Don't Fly campaign urges service members to refuse to press the kill button. A growing number of military drone pilots have indeed left the service or sought transfer, including Brandon Bryant. Sorry, she's just over here. So. Including Brandon Bryant. Where's Brandon Bryant? Who told Democracy Now! That he chose to quit the Air Force after developing doubts about the precision drones he controlled. as well as suspicions of the majority of his 1,626 confirmed kills. Jesus Christ, they've probably not been terrorists after all. Despite the dissenting voices of negative Nellies like Bryant and company, environmentally conscious warmongers can take solace in the next planned addition to the U.S. unmanned arsenal: high-flying solar-powered drones. High-flying solar-powered drones. Holy fuck! Okay, sorry. High-flying solar-powered drones. These are long phrases with crazy implications. So, okay. Today, law enforcement agencies, including local and state police, the FBI, Homeland Security, Border Patrol, and the Department of Defense, increasingly use drones for domestic reconnaissance and surveillance. While these brave new drones openly spy on and police Americans, thus far U.S. citizens have not been subjected to the types of aerial attacks suffered by those in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, Somalia, and elsewhere. But as they say, what's good for the goose? When the FAA authorized the commercial use of drones in domestic airspace in 2012, it estimated that nearly 30,000 drones would populate U.S. skies by 2020, conjuring the thoughts of all-seeing private security firms and unmanned mercenary drone armies. Collective anxieties about drones find avenues of expression in popular culture, whose works may prove not only entertaining but frighteningly prophetic. Drones act as cultural icons, fetishes, and memes appearing in fictional books, television, film, video games, art, music, and fashion. They're even Lego drones. Drones blur our understanding of reality and science fiction fantasy. The very thought of a drone, a term denoting anything from a toy helicopter to a foam plane to a global hawk to a predator, is vague and dreamlike. During an episode of one TV comedy, a lead character jokingly remarked that drones are not real, but rather like conspiracy theories, a collection of thoughts, feelings, isolated facts, and nebulous paranoia. Fictional drones not only deal death, but also face a number of challenges posed by terrorist attempts to disable them, and rogue supercomputer controllers who seek to wield them for malevolent interests. Drones show up in popular love songs throughout all the world, with ladykiller lyrics that swoon, "My gaze is as deadly as a drone attack," and "Drones in the morning, drones in the night, I'm trying to find a pretty drone to take home tonight." The drone's appearance in popular realms not only reflect wider cultural realities and fears and facilitate conversations about these realities and fears, but also provide arenas of resistance to them. A New York street artist arrested and charged with 56 counts of criminal forgery said that when he depicted drones with the iPod logo, he was trying to start a conversation about unmanned aircraft. Meanwhile, some people are just happy that Amazon drones will now deliver books to your doorstep, saving the U.S. Postal Service a lot of unnecessary work. You too can have a personal drone controllable from your laptop or smartphone if you can afford one. And if you can't afford one, and if you can't afford to buy one, my God, the do-it-yourself drone community is growing. Each month, over 1,000 new personal drones take flight. In fact, civilian-owned drones outnumber those operated by the U.S. military. But if you don't have time to sit around playing with your drone all day, bestow upon it a brain in the form of an embedded microprocessor computer chip. Let it do what so many seem incapable of doing. Let drones think for themselves. Perhaps this will cut back on reported wandering drones, like the Navy craft that stumbled into D.C. airspace, or fiascos such as the Mexican Army drone that crashed in an El Paso backyard in December of 2010. Or the $4 million MQ-9 Reaper drone, one of a fleet that regularly flies over upstate western New York, that in November 2013, after being dispatched from Fort Drum during a training session, crashed into Lake Ontario and remained missing. Pesky privately owned drones dropping illegal drugs in prison yards and getting in the way of important business at airports and disaster sites are cited for the commercial development of drone-killing countermeasures, such as the death ray laser gun that can knock a drone out by turning it off in the midair from a mile away. Just such a death ray might have come in handy when Buffalo's drone chickens came home to roost in late 2014. Twice that year, drones appeared over runways at the Buffalo International Airport, and nobody could determine who owned the seagull-sized intruders or why they had been deployed. They joined the FAA's list of unwanted drone sightings, a list I imagine does not include military, defense, and law enforcement drones, seen increasingly by aware skywatchers. Are you an aware skywatcher? Dude. I read like 12 pages and my mouth is fucking dry as fuck. And I don't even know how long that took me. Probably a long time. Alright. I'm gonna call it there. Bye. I need more fucking content.